everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I am super excited to share with all of you my first impressions of Florasis makeup. So you guys have probably seen Florasis on social media. They have the most beautiful, amazing packaging. And so I've been really interested in this brand for a while. I was first kind of skeptical because I feel like all the videos I've seen have been folks who received the products in PR. And I haven't really seen that many videos where influencers actually purchase the products themselves. And so for a while, I was secretly hoping that Florasis would send me some products. But finally, I gave up on waiting. So I ended up actually just buying these products myself. So I purchased 3 of their major products, their eyeshadow palette, their face palette, and then their lipstick. And so I have these and also some of the free goodies that came along with the order, since they had a pretty big sale on their website. So I figured, why not just bite the bullet, since I have been really wanting to try out their products for a long time. So if you are interested in a unbiased review of their products with absolutely no sponsorship whatsoever, then just stick around. So before we get into the products themselves, I did want to just quickly show you guys the box that this comes in as well. They have really beautiful packaging throughout, including the shipping box. And I was pretty impressed how quickly everything arrived as well, just like within a few days of my ordering, even though it was international shipping. So really great from that perspective. So in terms of the products I picked up, this is the eyeshadow palette. And I got this in their original color story. They've since come out with many others, but this one just felt like such a classic to me. So all of the packaging is super beautiful. Like, just look at that, so pretty. And this is what the packaging itself looks like. And interestingly enough, it actually has an expiration date. I've pretty much never seen that on makeup before. So this expires in 2026. And I was interested in this palette in particular because I wanted this more luxe encasement. I think some of them look like they might be more of like a cardboard packaging, but this one is definitely very beautiful. And wow, look at that engraving. So pretty. So yeah, this is really what Florasis is known for. They're gorgeous, gorgeous engravings. Like, wow. And actually this is really like far more impressive in person than even online. Like, wow, it's very, very detailed. Okay, I'm gonna try very hard not to drop this because I've had a bad track record recently of that, but hopefully you can see just some of the incredible detail. I am not looking forward to swatching this because I feel like that's gonna possibly ruin some of this, but hopefully, at least I have this on camera, so I have this memorialized here. Yeah, really, really pretty. I will say the packaging itself is pretty light, so it's not like super, super luxe feeling, but that said, I think it's overall very luxe for an eyeshadow palette, especially nowadays with so many brands just kind of phoning it in on the packaging front. I'm looking at you, Pat McGrath. So this is very nice, and let me actually take this off as well. So, ooh, actually that makes it look even nicer. Look at that. There's some subtle sparkle too. So really pretty, very excited about this. And they do have a informational pamphlet about this as well. And it says that this is kind of a bunch of different birds paying homage to the phoenix. So you see the phoenix in the middle, and then the shade names are all different types of birds. So interesting, according to Chinese myth, the phoenix was originally an inconspicuous bird with a plain appearance. It shared its food with other birds to together survive a famine. To show their gratitude, each bird pulled out one of their most beautiful feathers and presented them to the phoenix, thus making the phoenix gorgeous. Wow, that's really cool. I actually did not know that myth. Huh. That's really interesting. So this product can be used wet or dry. Personally, I pretty much never use my shadows wet, but that's good to know. And this is meant to be multifunctional, so it's eyeshadow, blush, or highlighter. So for example, this middle shade, I'm interested in using mostly as a blush, since I don't really think this kind of really bright red looks that great on the lids. But I really love this color story overall. It definitely was the most interesting one, at least to me. So next we have their Eastern Beasts Sculpting palette. This has a 12-month shelf life, and I picked this up in their special edition packaging, which is inspired by Suzo embroidery. So you can see that really beautiful reflect to those flowers. I think this is just so pretty. And I wanted something a little bit different with the aesthetic of all of these, since I wanted to kind of see a range within this brand. So opening this up, wow, again, the engraving is just so gorgeous. So similar to the previous one, this doesn't necessarily have the most heavy packaging, so it's not luxurious in that regard, but the engraving is extremely beautiful and detailed. And I also really love this cover as well. This is very beautiful and luxe as well. And this I thought would be a snap, but actually just kind of clicks in place with a magnet. So really pretty. And this actually expires in 2027. I do appreciate that they have expiration dates for all of these, so that's really great. So I assume the 12 months is kind of within when you start using it, and then the expiration date is overall when it expires. And then finally, I picked up one of their Love Lock lipsticks. Wow, look at that, so pretty. This is one of the initial products that really got me interested in Florasis, because it was just so unique and special in the market at the time. Here is the component, and I picked this up in shade M1666. And then you have this button on the side that you can click to make this pop out. And that's a very satisfying click. And then the lipstick comes out, and again, a beautiful engraving. Very impressed with all of the engravings. Looking at this closely, it's like a love story. So you have a man and a woman in the distance, and it's very dreamy and ethereal. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me try to just slowly turn it for you all. I'm trying to get as much of this documented on camera as possible, because I'm worried the moment I start using these products, the beautiful engraving will start to disappear. Though for the lipstick, at least it'll only start to disappear on the top. So yeah, really excited about this packaging. This has a little bit more weight to it as well. And then it comes with this cute little charm. So that just clips in the side, and there you have the adorable lipstick. Oh my gosh, this is so pretty. Such a like fairy princess sort of vibe. Really nice. So these are the 3 products that I picked up, and so far I am very stoked about all of them. So in terms of the other goodies that I got with this haul, so I got a free sample of their makeup primer, so I'll put this on with you guys today. I also got a sample of their gel cleanser, their cleansing oil, so they do have a lot of skincare products, their peach blossom powder, so I'll use this today to set my makeup. There's this headband scrunchie. Oh yeah, scrunchie. Okay, so this is cute as well. Cute little scrunchie with that sort of embroidery. So I guess this is actually probably to match with this product. Yeah, so these two kind of go together. And then here is an eyeshadow shader brush. So I'll use this in today's demo. And then finally a sheet mask. So actually quite a lot of nice goodies that came along free with this order. So overall, I'm pretty excited from this initial unboxing, so let's go ahead and start things out by trying out this face primer. For context, I don't normally use makeup primers, so I wouldn't consider myself a connoisseur of such products. For me, my skin is dry enough that usually I find I can just use complexion products directly on my skin without additional primer, but let's see how this feels. This feels like kind of like a sunscreen. So this does have SPF 50 in it. So I actually already have sunscreen on my skin today, but I guess this will just help me double up on sunscreen. And this does look like it's kind of a glowy product. It reminds me a lot of those Japanese primers that are kind of a sunscreen primer hybrid, where they're sort of like glow plus primer plus sunscreen. So this definitely has a kind of brightening effect on the skin, but sort of blends in easily like a moisturizer. But yeah, you can definitely see how much shinier my skin is. So pretty nice. It definitely has a strong sunscreen scent to it. But now I'll go off camera, put on my base, and be back for powder, and then we can get into the demo of the other products. So here I have my foundation, bronzer, and brows done. So now we can go into this little powder. I'm excited to get this because I was also considering buying one of their powders, which I've heard good things about, but this way I can try it out without buying a full size. So let's see. Oh, it even comes with a little puff. That's cute. I will say I find mini powders a little finicky to use, but let's try this out. This is actually very, very cute with this little... So this is clearly meant more for touch-ups, but for today I'm going to just use this all over my face. And it's definitely doing a good job of mattifying. I will say I'm usually not a huge fan of using puffs for powder because I feel like, to me at least, it's less controllable than a brush. But in a pinch, this is definitely workable. All right, so here we have this side mattified and this side not. I will say that the primer definitely added quite a bit of glow to my complexion because, so today I used my moisture foundation from Kogan Do, which is kind of glowy in any case, but it definitely looks even more glowy than normal. Alrighty, there we go. So here we have the whole face powder down, and I think this actually looks really nice. I actually was quite generous with the powder, but I don't think it looks too dry at all. Everything just looks nicely set, but my skin still looks pretty natural on the whole. The one thing I don't like about these little puffs is I never know how to clean them. If any of you guys have advice, let me know. I have tried just like washing them with soap and water, but I feel like it kind of warps the puff a little bit. But this is really cute, and I think this will be really nice for touch-ups. So before we go any further, I'm gonna actually go in with the lipstick because my lips are kind of dry and I'm very curious what this formulation feels like. So for context, I'm someone who normally doesn't wear matte lipsticks because my lips are very, very dry. But I figured this will be a good way to test out this formula, so by the end of this video, I can give you more of a review of how it feels. But yeah, here is the last look at the untouched bullet. So quite pigmented, and this is sort of a soft blurring formula. Very pretty. There we go. Wow, it's more red than I anticipated. I thought this was going to be a little bit more of kind of a slightly cooler tone to deeper red, but at least on the lips, it's definitely translating a bit more bright red than I anticipated. And this is the shade Bed of Roses. Really pretty though. And so far, at least upon initial application, it doesn't actually feel drying, which I'm actually kind of surprised at. But it'll be interesting to see by the end of this video how this is feeling. It is very lightweight on the lips and has that sort of slippy, silicone feel to it. So it doesn't really feel like you have anything on your lips after you put it on. So now let's go into the eyeshadow. So I'm gonna first open up this brush, which I will use for today's look. Oh wow, really pretty. So it has that peacock feather vibe, and here is the brush itself. I thought this was a double-ended brush, but I was totally wrong. It just has this on the other side, so I think I'll use this for the lower lash line today. Then now let's go into this eyeshadow palette, and I will very reluctantly swatch this for you guys. I'm gonna try to be very light-handed because I don't want to ruin the beautiful embossment. But the pigmentation actually comes off pretty easily, so that's good. Wow, that's a really pretty shade. And these are actually very silky to the touch, so that's nice. Here are the first four. Again, I'm actually quite impressed with how well these swatch, considering how light of a hand I was trying to take. And in general, the stereotype about Asian makeup is that it's less pigmented, but I feel like these are definitely decent in pigmentation. And interesting, this middle shade is definitely lighter in pigmentation. So you can see this is sort of, I think, more designed to be a blush shade. Either that or I'm just not swatching it hard enough, but the rest of them I'm sort of like barely touching and getting really intense pigmentation. So yeah, I would say you should think about the middle one as being a little bit more like a blush compared to the other ones, which are more like eyeshadow level pigmentation. And in general, I am impressed with how pigmented this is considering it's from an Asian brand. I mean, even if it was from a Western brand, I would say the pigmentation is pretty high. Really, really pretty. And I think the color story is actually more wearable than what it might look like in pan, because in pan, I think that middle red really dominates, but you can see just how light that is on the skin. So let's see, I'm gonna start out with this lightest matte shade and just sort of sweep this all over. Again, I'm so sad that the engraving is getting slightly worn off. I mean, these are pretty deep engravings, so they're gonna take a while to fully disappear. But of course, the detail is what is going to disappear first, and I'm already seeing a little bit of that just from the swatching I did. So sad. Oh, yeah, well, sacrifices had to be made in the name of YouTube, so hopefully at least you guys found it helpful to see those swatches. Okay, so this first shade you can see like really barely stands out against my skin tone, which I guess is to be anticipated based on the swatch. Just a nice shade to just set up the look essentially. And so then I'm gonna go into this more mid-toned matte shade and start to build up the intensity a little bit. Yeah, so that one is showing up a bit more. These are blending in very easily, so that's good. Although that's what I would expect, of course, for such light shades. Be interesting to go into the deepest brown matte. And overall, this palette definitely pulls a bit more on the warm side. So they have other palettes that are just more like pure neutrals. This one had the more interesting kind of greenish shades in it. So there we go, that's looking quite nice. And now I'm gonna go into that deepest brown shade. Not the most pigmented shade ever, but I think provides a nice shadow. If you want a kind of deep shade to use as liner, I think you'll have to dip out of this palette. But I think this is good for just the outer corner area, adding some depth. And so far so good in terms of the blendability of these shades. I'm definitely a snob when it comes to eyeshadow, and I'm impressed so far. Alrighty, so now the question of what to put all over the lids, since there's so many beautiful shades in this palette. So I'm gonna try to put as many as possible. So I'm gonna start out with this shade over here and put this in the inner third. That's just a really pretty kind of golden champagne. I'm gonna use the more sparkling shade in the inner corner, but there we go. So if you want a really neutral, sort of everyday look, you could just put this all over the lid with some of these mattes in the crease and kind of call it a day. But for today, I'm gonna also go in with this golden shade and put this in the center of the lid. I'm so sad. This shade is kind of one of the softer ones in the palette, so the embossment is already fading. I guess it makes sense. The sort of shimmers would be a bit softer, and thus the embossment is going to go away faster, but it is really sad to see that at the same time. Really, really pretty. And then I'm very curious about this shade, because I feel like this is sort of a much harder to formulate shade. So I'm going to put this in the outer portion. Oh, really pretty. This is definitely kind of the standout shade in the palette. It reminds me of that shade in the Viseart Cine News palette. I don't know how you pronounce it, but you know, Cire News palette, the recent one that's been taking YouTube by storm. I've been on the fence about whether to pick up that palette. Let me know if you guys would be interested in it. I'm gonna just now kind of use a brush to blend all of these shades together. But yeah, I'm on the fence because I feel like for that palette, really it's the equivalent of this shade that's the most interesting in the palette, and the rest of it's just kind of like shades I definitely already have in my collection. And unlike the other Viseart palettes, it's not on sale for Black Friday by very much. TBD on whether I'll pick that up. But alrighty, so there we go. So I would say the shimmers are not super pigmented in this palette. Like I'm gonna go in actually with this brush and just kind of go over them one more time to add a little bit more. But in general, the vibe of this palette is a little bit more kind of ethereal, I would say. There's no shades that are super dark or pigmented, and the shimmers are not like super high shine either. Not necessarily a problem, just a vibe. So if you are someone who likes really high impact, sort of more like Pat McGrath style shadows, this palette is definitely not going to give you that. But that said, it still is really beautiful. All right, so let's see. In terms of the other shades, I'm going to go in now to this really shiny champagne shade and put that in the inner corner. Build that up a little bit. Ooh, okay, there we go. This one almost has sort of a wet effect to it. And oh yeah, I guess I should mention again, like these shadows are meant to be used either dry or wet, so you can probably get a much higher impact if you go in wet, but I pretty much never do that just because I find it's very finicky because you have to sort of like, you know, put your brush in and then wet the shadow afterward, and then you can't really put your brush back in without drying your brush unless you want to risk harming the eyeshadow. So that's personally something I'm not a huge fan of, but dry, this is how they look. And now for the lower lash line, I'm going into this brush and I'm going to go straight into the more mid-toned matte shade and sweep this along the lower lash line. And this brush actually has some nice weight to it. So I'm usually not a huge fan of using synthetic brushes, so I don't think this will enter my regular routine, but it is a very nice brush in terms of how it feels. It feels very heavy in the hand. So now I'm just using that deeper matte shade in the outer portion. And then the one shade I haven't used yet is this red. So I'm gonna go in and put this on the lower lash line. Hopefully this doesn't give me a pink eye look, but yeah, I think this is okay. More of that rust red. All right, so here we have all the shades on my lids. What do you guys think? I'm gonna go back in later on and put this on my cheeks, but I first wanna use the Sculpting palette since I think this red blush will kind of dominate the blush in that palette. And here we have the finished eyeshadow look with eyeliner on. Overall, this is definitely a more subtle look than I was anticipating. It's very pretty, but yeah, like considering how many different shadows are on my lids, I think it doesn't actually look as multi-dimensional as I would have anticipated. But let's go in now with the Sculpting palette. I'm really excited about this because I feel like this will be a perfect palette for traveling. So let's see if that's the case. So I'm gonna first go in with this contour shade. And actually, before I do this, let me give you guys some swatches too. And again, very sad to disturb the embossments here, but it must be done. So here are the 4 swatches. And putting them on the back of my hand, here we have that. And this is the Color Story 1, which I think is maybe the lighter Color Story. The other one is more pinky and seems a bit higher impact. So I'm anticipating this to be quite subtle and natural on the skin, which definitely, so far with this contour shade, that's the case. But I'm fine with that. Recently, I've been actually more interested in these sorts of kind of cooler toned, more sculpting types of contours. And I do like how that looks. I feel like this does a very good job if you are just trying to add a bit more dimension to the face. Let me actually take some of this as well and sweep this along my nose bridge. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have used my Dior contour stick today as well because, you know, it's harder for you guys to see the impact just of this palette on its own, but hopefully you can still see some of that effect. All right, so now going into the blush, let's see how this looks. Ooh, very pretty, very nice kind of everyday peachy shade, and actually more pigmented than I thought it would be considering that the bronzer was pretty light. Okay, so now for the other 2, I'm gonna take some of this powder and just kind of sweep it around the rest of my face. I honestly forgot that there's a powder in this as well. That's why I use the sort of smaller powder. But it's nice having this too. I'm not actually sure if this is meant to be a finishing powder or a setting powder. But in any case, I'm just gonna sweep it across my face. And then taking a wispier brush, I'm just gonna take a little bit of that highlighter because it does look quite glittery. And I'm gonna just sweep that on the high points of my cheek. Has a little bit of sparkle to it. Alrighty, there we go. So I actually like that. I think this look is pretty nice overall. I'm gonna just go in now with a little bit of that red blush too. It's really unnecessary, but I just wanna see how this looks. So I'm going to add some of that to the outer portion of my face so you can just see a little bit of that reddishness. The same on this side. Yeah, I really do like how this is a nice blush shade. It just kind of reduces the number of palettes you have to bring along with you. Like honestly, with these two, this is pretty much all you need for traveling, and you can do your whole face pretty much in terms of powder products. And then just because I feel like the eye look could use just a little bit something extra, I'm gonna also try actually taking some of this on my eyeshadow brush and adding some red just to the outer portion of my eyes too, just to see if that adds a little bit more interest to this look. Because I mean, it's nice that this look is so neutral, but I just want a little bit extra. Yeah, okay, I think that definitely helped. Alrighty, so here we have the overall makeup look. What do you guys think? I'm actually quite pleased and impressed. I mean, I'm not like surprised per se, but I am a little bit surprised, honestly, because, you know, part of me was worried that this was going to be a complete fail because, like I said, all the videos I've watched, these products have been gifted. And so, you know, it's totally different if you actually have been building up the products in your head and then you decide to actually order them yourself after watching a lot of videos, which is what I did. And so I was, you know, kind of worried that this would really not work out well because at least for their return policy, I think it's just like 7 days. So it's like a shorter return window than for a lot of brands. But I actually don't think I will be returning anything. I think this looks really, really nice. I'm quite impressed with everything. Just to kind of run through all of the products. So with the eyeshadow palette, I would say my only like slight disappointment is just I feel like I personally like just a little bit more glimmer and impact. Like I said, I think I could probably achieve that by wetting my brushes, but that's just not what I typically do. And with some other eyeshadow brands like Natasha Denona, Pat McGrath, like, you know, I expect to be able to get pretty high impact without wetting my brush. That said, that is really more of a personal preference thing. There's really nothing not beautiful about these eyeshadows. They blend impeccably on the lids. They are very easy to apply. So if you are someone who is more into like straight up shimmers and not like sparkling shimmers, if you like sort of that less textured look, then I think this is really, really gorgeous. And it's just a very easy palette to use too. It's kind of a no-brainer in terms of the progression of the 3 mattes. You have a light matte, a medium tone matte, and a slightly deeper matte. And then you have like these different shimmers that are mostly in this kind of more neutral color story. And then you have this one, which I think if you put this all over the eyes or use it as liner, you could get like some further oomph from it. And then, like I said, I really love that this is a blush, since when you first look at this palette, it can look kind of intimidating, but honestly, if you cover up this blush and if you kind of ignore the last green shade, then it's just a very sort of basic neutral palette. And not in a bad way. Like I said, the formulation is really nice and it's a very beautiful palette as well, perfect for gifting too. So definitely, if you are interested in this packaging and this color story, I don't think you'll be disappointed if you like a more like subtle makeup look. In terms of this sculpting palette, this was really gorgeous and wonderful as well. I'm super excited to take this with me traveling, since I feel like this will just be perfect for like your full face in one palette. The one thing I don't love 100% about this is I feel like the highlighter does have just a little bit more like glitteriness than my personal taste. If you like that sort of more glittery finish, I think this will be great. But of course you can just like lightly scatter the highlighter on or just leave it out if you prefer a more subtle look. But the rest of the formulations are definitely fully up my alley and really easy to use. And I think the tones are really nice too. Like I said, I've been in the market for more of a cooler toned, more subtle, like contour shade in a powder, and I think this definitely fits the bill. And then finally for the lipstick, I am actually very pleasantly surprised. So like my lips don't feel dry at all, which I was fully expecting to be an issue because like I said, I normally can't wear like matte blushes at all. And this is, I mean, this is a little bit more of a satin, but even like this level of satin is usually too drying for me. For context, yesterday I tried on for the first time the Lisa Eldridge refillable lipstick, and I was expecting this to feel good on my lips, but I found this to be quite a bit drying and not very comfortable. So surprisingly, this one is more comfortable. I really thought it was going to be the other way around and that this would be more of just like a vanity piece on my counter, but surprisingly, so far so good. I have no complaints about wearing this lipstick, and I think it looks quite nice as well. So overall, I am very impressed with my first impressions of Florasis makeup. I would love to hear in the comments if you guys have tried out this brand before, and if so, what your thoughts are. I do think it's a good idea to wait for sales because I got all of this like heavily discounted because, you know, it's the Black Friday season. They have a ton of sales going on. So it's a good time to pick up these products if you're interested. At full price, you know, I might like be a little bit less inclined towards them, but I got these at a pretty good discount, so I have absolutely no regrets when it comes to picking these up, and I'm overall very impressed with the formulation since I was worried this was going to be a brand just kind of purely about the looks. But if you are someone who likes kind of like more subtle makeup, this is really a great brand to try out. And if you find this sort of packaging beautiful, then there's really kind of, a no-brainer. Might as well pick it up. Worst comes to worst, it becomes a vanity piece, but you'll probably enjoy the formulations as well. So that's it for today's video. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.